Hey, and welcome to what are we? Social stream number 5 for the Storytellers Hearth Weekend Relay. I am your host for this one, Violet of the Nostalgia Train Book Club, which I have a sub banner. I'm going to try to keep it professional since we're over on the book club channel, even though the book club is really not that professional. Well, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves first. Nina.
Hi, I'm Nina. Go, Phoebe.
Hi, I'm Phoebe.
Love that. Those were great intros. Like, honestly, amazing. 10 out of 10.
If you were hoping that would fill some time, no.
It's fine. I can fill time. So first, I will just introduce actually the book club. So if you're not familiar with the Nostalgia Train, because maybe you're not, we are a book club, online book club, a free online book club here, based primarily on YouTube and on Discord. And we read all the biggest hits in middle grade and YA of the past. You know, the Twilights, the Aragons, the Hunger Games, all those. Percy Jackson. We read them. We come. We have live shows. We talk about them. It's a good time. Yeah, and if people want to join the book club, they can just show up to live shows or follow us on Instagram, join our Discord server, be part of the live shows and the discussion happening on Discord. I do have a Google form for helping pick the next picks, which I will pop in the chat. If people would like to fill out this Google form. Sorry while I type this. And yeah, and about me, I have also my own channel, Writing Violet, where I do streams with the 3 nuts and post timers. So, yeah, and you guys are both a verified phone nuts, so.
True story.
True. And I do have my nuts in Discord.
So here is the Google form if people want to vote for books they want to read, because I don't remember what's on there. I think Cinder, The Diviners, Chronicles of Narnia, those type of books are on the form this time around. So
magic! Oh my god! This is Wizard of Earth. This is Animals. This is such a throwback. I guess I need to vote. I need to vote, and I need to start turning up.
Yeah, it's a fun time, you know, trying to convince people to read these books, because the whole reason I started the book club was I bought a secondhand copy of Warrior Cats at a thrift shop, and I was like, oh, I've heard about the series. I never got to read it as a kid, but like, it's about cats. I want to read that. Like, it sounds so cool. And it was during a Troublemaker stream. Katie Ann talked about how she loved that series, and that's really where I got the idea. I was like, oh, I would love to buddy read it with you, like somebody who's, you know, has nostalgia for this, and me reading it as a new reader, and let's talk about it. So we did do Warrior Cats, but it wasn't our first pick. It was like actually quite a ways into the book club when we did Warrior Cats. But yeah, that's what triggered this idea. And I don't know, I was just being fun and starting a book club, and now it's my baby. This is really my baby. That's why I wanted to host on this channel, to get more eyes on the channel, because I used to do all the book club stuff on my channel, Writing Violet, and now I made an own channel for the book club. So we would appreciate a subscribe. So
yeah, no, I love it. I've recently got into nostalgia for 2 reasons. Partly because, gosh, a few years ago I tried to give away a bunch of my old books to charity shops, and my mum was like, no, let me hoard those and read them myself. So my mum has been, for the last few years, going through like every book I've ever read. And so at the moment she's on this. Oh, is my camera okay? At the moment.
No, her camera is not okay.
No, I was on the form, and then I was scared that it was me, but okay.
Phoebe, are you with us? 3?
Yeah. That's the second time my internet has been weird, and I don't know why it's doing that today. My internet is always okay here.
My internet is acting up today too, which is why I'm using my phone as a hotspot.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
I need to know what your mom is reading, Phoebe. You left us on a cliffhanger.
She's reading the sequel to The Wind Singer, which I read. I actually had to read it at school when I was about 11, but I loved it. And the other reason I've been reading nostalgic stuff recently is because of TV adaptations. So, like, The Worst Witch is on Netflix, and I loved The Worst Witch books when I was a kid. And now I'm, like, writing Worst Witch fan fiction.
I can totally then use this banner of what childhood books have impacted your writing.
There you go.
Thank you for that seamless transition, Phoebe. Nina, is anything coming to mind?
Oh, okay. So I didn't really read as a kid.
What?
I know.
But to be fair, Nina's like still a kid. She's really young.
No, like like as a kid, like child, I wanted to read because my sister read, but I didn't really read. But I did read this one book series, which I don't know if it's translated, but it's called Here Comes Lola, and there was a movie, and those are like kids books, and they are so cringy now. Like
picture books or like chapter books?
No, I mean they are kind of books,
Mm-hmm.
but also, you know, like a book and it has like huge text.
Okay.
Yeah. It
early
was that.
readers. Is that what they call them? I'm not so like actually knowing like the younger age categories. Like that's why the book club we do YA and middle grade. And some things get a little bit like fuzzy, especially because we do old books like
Yeah.
No, but I mean those books kind of impacted my writing. But also I never finished the series. I did read a lot of the books, but then I got spoiled by a friend and then I was like, nah, I don't want to finish it. But like in later years, even though like I wasn't that young anymore, but like Six of Crows got me back into reading. And that also kind of impacted me in starting to write fantasy, even though now I mainly write contemporary and like urban fantasy. But like Six of Crows, like also like all the characters and the tropes used, like Found Family. Oh, I love Found Family. I started so many heist books after that. I didn't finish any of them, but I did start them.
Phoebe, you got any thoughts on this?
So Six of Crows didn't exist when I was young.
Same.
Because I'm an old lady. I was very much, I mean, my childhood, once my mum managed to convince me that reading was good, because at first I was a bit resistant, once she convinced me that reading was good, it was an endless stream of fantasy books. It was like, is it called The Faraway Tree or The Magic Faraway Tree? But the timing of my childhood was very much that I was the ideal age when the Harry Potter books come out.
Same.
Which obviously a bit bittersweet looking back.
Yeah,
and
same.
I was also target audience for Twilight.
Same.
So
are we
those
the same
are like
age, Phoebe? I thought you're younger than me.
Probably not.
I'm in my early 30s.
Oh, well, okay. I'm 20. How old am I? 28? I'm going to be 29 this year.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even born when the first Harry Potter book came out. I think. But I'm pretty sure even like the first movie. I wasn't born when the first movie came out, you know? So I'm a child.
Yeah, I know you are, Nina.
See, me and my friends, you know, like it was such a big deal when the next movie came out and you all went to see it together. And it was such a big deal when the next book came out. And it's like, oh my God, what page do you want? Like 2 hours after it's out, like, what page do you want now? Oh my God, I've just got to page such. Yeah.
No, that sounds so cool though.
It's definitely a fun time to be a reader. Because I like worry about kids these days, like they all have smartphones. And then I worry they don't read as much, like because like reading was such a part of my childhood. Like, I don't know.
I have to say, I'm so grateful to my mum for really insisting that I read, because as I say, I really wasn't into it at all to begin with, and then it was like a flip switched, and I was suddenly like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing ever. But my mum, especially when she would read to me at night, which she did until I was quite old, and she would do all the voices and everything.
Oh.
And at the time, I'd be like, Mom, that's not the voice. That's not how they sound. But years later, I'm like, oh my God, that's the best thing I could have had, you know?
Well, it sounds like you have a top tier mom, Phoebe.
I do, you know? I do.
Yeah,
I
I
love that.
started like reading really late. Actually, like especially like because my sister was like she read a book in a day. She would come home from school, sit down, and then come back out of her room having read a book. And she always wanted to be read to when she was a child. Like my sister's older, but I've been told I never wanted that. Like I wanted like those really short like picture books. I like those because they were fun. But in general, I read I looked it up. I read Six of Crows when I was 16 in 2018. But like one other book that I also saw that I read that also impacted me at the time was Maze Runner. I watched the movie and my sister was like, "Do you want to read the book?" I read it in German and I loved the book. And so I started the second book and I never read the third book. That's the whole thing. But no, I spoiled myself of a character who dies and I opened a random page and I saw that my favorite character died. So I was like, no, I'm not going to read that. But when I read that, I like also started writing like all of this dystopian. And I'm still like, I don't write dystopian anymore really, but I'm still kind of holding on to some of the like things that I pulled from that.
No, I think you bring up a good point, like with the genre, like dystopian like had such a huge like boom. And I think as like readers and like people who are gonna like be future writers, it's like really inspirational to think of, oh, if the world was like this, how would this be? Or like, it just gets the imagination sort of flowing and thinking about, oh, I wonder in this district what they were doing in Pan Am or whatever like you're thinking about, like for creative people like which we are. I mean, it kind of fuels us, and I think readers and writers like it's kind of a I mean, I don't know any writers who like didn't want to become writers because of reading first, like being a reader first and like falling in love with stories that way. So yeah, because I didn't have a smartphone as a kid, and like books were the way to like indulge imagination.
Yeah.
So especially Phoebe, since you brought up Harry Potter, I definitely think like because the story I'm writing now is a YA, hopefully going to be a series about witches, and I definitely think me kind of wanting things that I wanted out of Harry Potter, like I've definitely kind of taken like, oh, I wish it would have been like this, or like if I could live in a magical world and be a witch, this is how I would want it to be. You know.
Can I ask whether you're at all familiar with The Worst Witch?
No, actually, I'm not.
Okay.
I've heard of it,
I have
but
to plug this because it's my current, like, it's the thing I can't stop thinking about from when I wake up to when I go to bed. It was a series of books when I was a kid, which were, oh gosh, I mean, this is kind of pre the age of like our current categorizations. So I don't know whether they'd be called middle grade or even something younger, maybe. But it's kind of basically the author's take is she says J.K. Rowling should have given me a huge thank you because basically she wrote her books first, and then there's a lot of similarities.
That's what I've heard about Earthsea as well.
Yeah, but this one is very specifically like it's kids in a school for magic in a castle. They have like a really strict potions teacher, but like a cozy, cuddly headmistress, not headmaster.
Right now,
But
while you're talking.
I loved them as a kid, and then the reason I got back into it recently was because I realised that the adaptation, which aired in the UK from 2017 to 2020, starred Bella Ramsey as the protagonist. And I was like, oh, that's interesting because Bella Ramsey is interesting. Let me check it out. And I got so much back into it, and it's so nostalgic, but I've been recommending it to everyone as a kind of, if you have weird feelings about Harry Potter now and you don't want to go there, this is kind of like similar vibes.
Oh, cool. I'm definitely going to check that out. earlier this year I read Hex Hall, and I was really looking for that, and I don't know, it didn't really hit it for me.
Mm.
And I don't know, so because I love like witches as just a archetype, um, but I think I'm really particular because there's a lot of different ways you can do sort of magic.
I see. I see.
So, oh, Anne is showing up and asking us to entertain her. And weren't you supposed to be on Marta's stream, but we're not feeling well? Is that what I understood? Anne is saying, oh, I love to write a series as complex as The Secrets of Nicholas Flamel. It's a 6-book series I read as a teen and I absolutely love. It's urban fantasy, but goes high fantasy later in the series, and it is so good. Oh, shoot. And wait, hold on. You never know what's going on because your main characters were thrown into the mix. Where am I? But like in a good way. You're discovering things with them, and it's so fun. Nice.
I mean,
you
I
are
feel
on Marta's
like
stream.
I could be wrong, but I
We're
feel
all
like
on
a lot
Marta's
of the
streams.
great kind of middle gradey fantasy books are either portal fantasies or setting our world, but where someone somehow discovers there's a secret element to our world,
Yeah.
where like the reader is really taken on the journey of discovery with the character. And so really as the character learns bit by bit how this world functions, you do too.
Yeah, I wrote a middle grade, like a first draft of a middle grade, which was basically like this, basically like a portal fantasy, where like you learn everything with the character, and I really like that.
I have to say, like, for Nostalgia Train, we've pretty much only done like genre stuff. We haven't really touched contemporary books, which in a way is a shame because like YA contemporary really had a moment. Like there's so many like nostalgic, like the John Green type of books like that were like huge. Um I don't know. I just don't love contemporary, like especially like hard hitting contemporary. So I don't want books. Maybe I wouldn't like your books, Nina, because I don't go to books to cry. So, oops. I also think I had read Cirque du Freak as a child. If I had read, it would have influenced me heavily. Oh yeah, that definitely influenced me as a kid, for sure, for sure, for sure. I don't know what these guys are doing. They're just fighting in the comments. Ooh, sushi with
Ooh.
avocado. Love that.
Who is she?
I know we do have to do some sprints during the stream,
True.
so we could do one now. Oh, but I was also just going to say that this month the book club is reading The Ranger's Apprentice by John Flanagan, which is also fantasy, but that's like high fantasy, but it's not really. It's like in a medieval world, but it doesn't feel that magical. I don't actually remember. I read it last year, and I'm going to be rereading it now. Is probably what I'm going to do during this sprint. Yeah, it's definitely a different type of fantasy. And that's pretty much like what we've been doing for the book club. A lot of fantasy, because I think it's just a lot of fantasy lovers. A little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of horror. What are you guys going to be doing during the sprint?
I have no idea yet. I was meant to be writing my fantasy this weekend, and then yesterday after my stream, I just kind of had a breakdown instead. So I don't know.
That's okay. You can also just take care of yourself, vibe.
I don't know yet. I will probably print stickers because I got a printer recently and I have like sticker paper, and so I'm gonna print stickers because what else am I supposed to do for like my maybe next writing project? Who knows? You never know with me.
What? I want to get
But I'm gonna-
sticker paper. That sounds like a great idea. Why did I never think to do this?
I'm so here for it. My mum had sticker paper when I was a kid, and it was the most fun to print
I
random stuff
love
on.
sticker paper, and now I have my own printer and it's great, and I can print all the stickers. I printed like a whole like sheet of like all these characters in Stardew Valley so that I can make a journal where I write down like their schedules and everything, and I needed stickers.
Oh, this would bring up my bullet journal game.
Wow.
Yeah, I
This
know.
sounds like
I have so many stickers that I bought, and now I'm like, now I can like print my own and like get the exact sticker I want.
This is for you, Phoebe.
Oh, thank you. I
And
am, surviving.
I don't know why Steve has put a question mark here at the end of this. Let me get our duck timer up. Duckies, or snakes. It just depends if you want to call this a snake or a duck. Is this? Oh, that's not the right button. What? No, this is better. Like that? Yeah. Okay. Are we ready?
Mhm.
Okay. Happy sprinting.
Would more effective writing give you an edge at
Can you hear me?
We can now.
I forgot to plug in my headphones.
How did the spring go?
Good question mark. I'm just looking for things that I can like make stickers. I'm mostly inspired by my Vienna Fantasy Story 2, which isn't a sequel, really. Like it's the same
Companion
concept.
novel?
Yeah, it is probably a companion novel. Like it's the same concept, but like a different story. It has a title.
Okay.
I don't know why I don't use the title, but anyway, I'm looking for things that would make cute stickers for that. And it's taking a lot longer than I had expected. I also made something to drink. I made some matcha because I realized I haven't eaten anything today. Oops. Yeah.
Well, we ordered pizza. Before I didn't know I was muted. I was telling you I have cheesy bread. That was like the appetizer, and I have not a Coke, a Pepsi. Phoebe, did you find anything to do during that 22 minute sprint?
I'm looking at Vespertine by Margaret
Ooh.
Rogerson, which I've read before, but I'm now working on a novel that has a possession element in the plot. And if you're familiar with Vespertine, for much of the plot, she's kind of like possessed, if you like, by another creature character thing.
Would you
And so
recommend that book
I'm-
actually? Because it's been on my radar.
Yeah, and do you know, this is very relevant for a question that I know you have upcoming. A book topic discussion. No, I'm basically looking at how Margaret Rogerson does it to see if that helps me. And it is helping me figure out how I should do it.
What did I do during the sprint? Oh yeah, the pizza delivery arrived just 2 minutes before the timer went up, but I got a little bit distracted at the beginning of the sprint, seeing where I could get Worst Witch. So I was like checking scripts in the library. So I have it on my wish list now. So
Oh,
the book's quite short.
yeah. I mean, I think they are maybe almost pre-middle grade type thing. I don't know because I haven't actually reread the books. I just read them as a kid, and now I'm have watched the show.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna check it out. Anne was calling Stieg out for being a writer. I also messaged Anne during that because actually the Nostalgia Train is doing a collaboration with her book club, the Tome Traveler book club, this month. So we're trying to set up the live show. So I will be on their channel for their live show because they do the age categories. I'm trying to then figure out when we're going to have the live show over here on this channel. I have banners. Whoop. Oh, that's not the right banner. Okay. So did we want to talk about age category? Was that the topic you were alluding to?
Oh no, I was alluding to. I thought one of the topics was
Thinking critically as a writer.
Topics. Maybe that. Yeah.
Or age category, or talking about YA.
I was referring to like reading as a writer.
Yes. Okay. Great. Then that'll be our topic. Oh, Steek says he loved Worst Witch.
Yes! I'm so glad you're here for this, Steek. Because, yeah.
Hi, Sam. Sam, is it 2 hours of runtime and 40 minutes of sprinting? Is that correct? Okay, Phoebe, I'll let you just go with whatever your thought was on this banner.
My thought recently has been, well, I like to use, as I'm doing with Vespertine, I like to use published books to try and figure out how to do stuff in my own book. But I think it's a bit overwhelming if you try to focus on everything at once. So, for example, I'm looking at this one book to see how she handled this kind of possession trope thing. And and I might look at other books for other things, or I might come back to this and look at something different. But I think being able to break down an element of a book and say, okay, I'm looking at this one thing right now.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. I think, like, for me, since, like, having this book club, we, hold on, I can pull up just some of the regular book club banners that we normally use. Like, we always have, like, talking about the prose and writing style. We always have, thimbles, motifs. We have always, like, these topics that we talk about every time, and pacing we have as well. It just says heist plots because that was from Mistborn. And it really makes me think a lot of times, and we also bring up problematic things that happen in older books. So when I'm writing something, I think if somebody's looking critically at this, how could it be picked apart? That's like my thing with my writing, that I'm constantly thinking, like, okay, but when you're getting down to it, would this mean as a theme? What am I saying here? Is this actually what I want to be putting out there?
Yeah, I really loved Roald Dahl books as a kid, and had no idea, because I was an innocent child, that they have really like highly anti-Semitic tropes in them. And now there's this big thing. It's been in the news in the UK. I don't know if it's in the US as well, where books are being republished. His books and other older books like Enid Blyton, I think, may be a candidate for it. Whether they should be republished with corrections to make them more suitable for modern sensibilities. And it's like, on the one hand, I would love it if kids were exposed to great stories that already exist without having to, see any problematic tropes. On the other hand, it's kind of like erasing that part of the author's history, and maybe people will read this edited version and think, oh, this author's fine, they're not anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
And it's like smoothing over the fact that that did happen and that we do need to have a conversation about it. So
Yeah, I think that could be that. Yeah, that's true. That could be like an issue in the long run, especially if it's not like if the book like says like it has been edited to make it more like suitable for today, maybe. But it's not even like the thing of, oh, if they take that out, it ruins the story, because like, no. But like, yeah, that is true. Like, I have read very little Roald Dahl, but I have read some. Like, we had to read some in school, and I did also like some things just didn't sit right with me, and I didn't realize at that time what it was, and then only like later on I kind of like caught that. And even now when I read a book, I'm like I read more critically now than I used to, obviously, also because I am a writer and I know a lot more that goes into writing a book. So sometimes I like read a book and I find something that doesn't have to be like problematic or anything, but I look at it and I think like, why was that put into this book? It makes no sense. When like before then, I would have never like read that. There have been books that I've reread more than once, like old books, and then when I reread them again, it was like, why did I never notice that? But I just have like a very different viewpoint now.
Well, I think that's why it's such a big element of discussion for kids' book in particular, because if it were in adult books, then we expect that even if we leave it as published, that people will be able to read it critically and go, okay, there's a problem here,
Or
and
just
make
include
form
a
their own
editor's
opinion.
note or something.
Yeah, whereas it's because it's books for children who
Yes,
are so malleable and don't have those critical skills yet, that it's like, how do we approach that?
I agree.
I think it's like with kids' books, especially if the kids read it themselves, like if parents like can't like step in quotations, it's like kind of weird. I know like I like a friend of mine, when she was young, her mom read a book to her that she loved, but she like changed stuff around. She didn't know that because she wasn't reading it. And then like later on she read the book herself, and it was a picture book, but like she read it herself and she like kind of like realized what her mom had changed, so she wouldn't like teach her kid like bad things.
Yeah. I get that 100%.
But it was like really old, you know. I think it was like her grandma had bought it for her mom. So it was like a very different time.
I would
But
do
like
the
she
same.
didn't
Like
want
if I
to
had been
teach
reading
that.
something out loud, I would just
Yeah.
change the word. That reminds me, one time I was at karaoke and a song was playing that had like the N-word in it. And when it came to that part in the song, the what do you call it, the DJ, the MC or whatever, he just dropped the sound of the music that it didn't play the word. And what did he say? Like, oh, he then inserted a different word like friend or buddy or like something that was like contextual to the song.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny. And I was like, oh, that was like a really good way to handle it, because he didn't want the whole, because it was karaoke, he didn't want the whole bar to just scream that word. And I was like,
But
oh, that was
how
great.
awkward if the music had dropped and one person had like
Yeah, that would have been funny, but that didn't happen because everybody, like, nobody was gonna scream that word. But
Yeah.
I just liked that he took it into his own hands to be like, we're not doing that here. So hi Emma. More love for the worst witch. Steek says, I agree with Phoebe. Republishing old books to reflect modern values and beliefs is a futile project. We should learn from them instead, and it will help kids read critically.
I mean, maybe these are books that we should have more. Well, see, I was going to say taught in schools rather than read at home, because then part of the curriculum around it would be like, how do we read this now and what's wrong with it? But then also, I don't know if I trust schools, because
Yeah,
No.
the education system isn't always the best. So
Like
we definitely had this for the book club last year in September. We did the Newbery Nostalgia Readathon. And the Newbery Medal Award has been going on for 100 years. So some of the older books that have received this award really have not stood the test of time. Like, especially since a lot of them are like the book version of like award bait, like, doing like tough issues, which if you don't do some of those issues in like a nice way, it's not going to stand up to like our modern lens of looking at it.
yeah.
And it definitely brought up some interesting questions, I think. Like, you can't strip an award from a book, like, I think, but it's
yeah, but
just an interesting thing to think of.
yeah, I think it really shows like how like society has changed over time. Looking at like books that like got rewards, or movies or TV shows that were popular, all this versus now. Like that's really also like I had like in my school, I didn't read most of the books we had to read, but I read some of them. But like also from what I've heard from other people, like there were books that had like problematic things in them, and we had one teacher who just kind of didn't talk about it at all. And then we had another teacher like in German who did talk about those issues. Like it wasn't like the whole like everything she talked about in the book, like also the other things, but she also made it like a priority to talk about this and to like educate the like 10-year-olds that those things aren't like, they were like quote unquote accepted back then, but that is not like good or normal anymore. And I think that's really important, that like if teachers give you stuff to read, even especially if it is like required reading, that they then like talk about like the issues of it too, and not only, but obviously in a like age friendly way, because it's a difference if you're 10 or 17. But like I think it's important to talk about this, because a lot of children don't read very critically. They don't look at those things and like pull them apart. They just like, the brain is like a sponge, and it like just gets all the information in, and that is the way it is now.
But I think we need balance. Like, it's also important for kids to have new books which aren't problematic, so that they get the opportunity to enjoy stories without having to also like load on all of this depressing stuff. Like, we need to, and because I saw an article about this issue which took a different take on it, where it said the problem with republishing old authors' books for modern sensibilities is that instead of doing that, we could be publishing new authors who are just writing with those modern sensibilities, and therefore bringing on a new cohort into publishing, as opposed to just trying to money grab from the same authors over and over and over. And I think there's something to be said there as well. Like, let's also, write and distribute unproblematic books.
I agree. That was kind of the same issue with the Newbery, because they were saying that like a Newbery metal books usually get special places in libraries, specifically in school libraries, and it's like that shelf space could be used for other books, like that book buying budget could be used for something else. They usually get like their own like Newbery medals, like like almost like a advertisement in libraries, like these are good books to go to, and it's like maybe we shouldn't be doing that.
Because I mean, especially if you're like as a child, but also parents, like you don't know every book, so you go there and you see, okay, it has a medal, it has an award, so it is a children's book, it's good for my kids, and then maybe there's something in it that just kind of isn't that good for like a child to consume now, especially with like how society is now. And I think just like publishing new authors would probably be just a lot better, because like a lot of books, like everything has been done before, so a new author may write a book that is similar, obviously not the same, but similar to an old like classic book or whatever, and it's not problematic, and it teaches the kids like the same good things that the other book taught them, minus the bad things.
And for the sake of diversity as well, right? Because if you rely on the old classics, then you're not going to get the same diversity of race, gender, sexuality, etc. So we need that new cohort coming in if we're going to keep developing like a diverse publishing space.
It's seeing the world through the same lens over and over. I kind of have a follow-up question or related question to this. Like, us as writers, this is something I think about a lot, because when we're writing stories, obviously stories need conflict, characters need flaws. When you have something that you're dealing with that is more problematic, or an issue which you need maybe for your character's development or your plot development, I worry about this honestly as a writer sometimes, that somebody is going to be reading my book and something is going to happen and they're going to instantly DNF, and I'm like, oh no, but there's going to be an arc there. There's going to, for me, it's this struggle of being like, yes, this thing is included, but like, how do you guys deal with that in your writing?
Yeah, I have that issue also, because sometimes I write things and I know that like the problematic part of it has to be there, but it obviously, like in books, it depends on how the author handles it. But like, I think it's because even like if I read a book and there's something problematic, I don't just immediately quit reading, because I can see, like, I want to see like how the author deals with it. Will it be like resolved in a way or not? But like, I have that a lot too when I write something, or even when I write characters, or when I write people and arcs and all that, and it's just kind of like there is a problematic thing to it, and I'm kind of like worried that people like then think that that is the way I think, even though it's like part of the conflict, but not like in a way that I just throw in. Like, it's not like I just throw that in for the sake of throwing it in, but like it has a reason to it.
People would think that maybe your character's bad opinions or bad attitude reflects on your personal beliefs.
Yeah,
that's like always a fear that I have. Like, no, my character's just an asshole, and they need to be an asshole for plot reasons and character development reasons. But like, that's not my opinion, or that's not like how I would be.
I hate seeing that in book reviews as well, especially when the character they quote is like an antagonist, and people are like, this character said a bad thing. It's like, yes, they're a bad person. That's the point.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. And I think that that's also like a fear writers have a lot, because as a writer, you probably look at like writing and like at a book and like a character like that differently, because you know that the author doesn't have to be like sharing the same opinions, because book writing is so different from reading, yet they are like linked together. But like a reader might see this and just assume
Yeah.
you are
I
like
mean,
it.
I think one thing I like to do in my writing, and which is probably really important in any book, is to create dialectics where it's not that all of your characters believe one thing, but two people believe two different things and they come into contact. And therein lies the conflict of two
Oh, yeah.
different beliefs coming into contact. And that's even more interesting if those two people are or have to be allies than if it's just strictly a protagonist and antagonist. And I think so by having a diversity of opinion among your characters, I think it would be unreasonable for a reader to look at any single character and say, well, that must be your point of view as an author, because the whole point is that you're exploring the conflict through multiple voices which all say different things. So they can't all be your voice, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just something I do worry about, like, just like that we get so woke that you can't have conflict in a story.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
stories where everybody's nice and correct and good are not really fun stories. Those are just like
Yeah. I mean, they aren't fun and they aren't realistic. Like, I mean, I had friends who like one of my like old friends. I'm not friends with her anymore, not particularly because of like that reason, but she had said like some problematic things and she didn't quite understand why I thought that wasn't a good idea.
Mhm.
But I think she just like she lacked like the reflecting on herself kind of. And I think that's like, it's so unrealistic that someone would have friends that one all share the exact same
Yeah.
opinions, that don't have any like problematic views, because sometimes people have problematic views and then they learn about it and change their views too. Like I know a lot of people who like have changed a lot in their views as they grew up and as they like learned things, me included. Like I had a lot of different views on things then than I have now, just because I was able to like go into it and learn about it and like learn the differences. And I think that that's just, it's just so unrealistic also. And I think it just wouldn't be fun, because if everyone is the exact same, then that can't, like, that's just impossible.
You know what? Actually, Nina, this is kind of a good segue talking about writing YA and like teen characters and coming of age. But I'm gonna hold this banner off until after the next sprint. So this will be our next discussion topic. But let's do a 20-minute sprint. Um, what zodiac is it now? Because I can do that zodiac timer. What month is it right now? March?
Yeah.
So it should be is why is Aries the next one? Am I
I have no idea.
I have no
Do we have any
idea. I don't
zodiac
know.
girlies in the chat? Because it was just Pisces, but Pisces season should be over now.
I found an article.
Also, hi, Malin.
It's Aries.
Okay, so I was correct. Okay. Oopsie. Let's share the screen. Okie dokie. Happy sprinting. Does it play the timer for you guys? Can you guys hear it?
The bit at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the one that got the original music I had got copyright claimed.
Oh.
So that was just like, like they let you put in the YouTube studio replacement music. So I was like, what is this timer? I don't know this sound. And I was like, oh yeah, that's the one that got copyrighted. And I didn't want people then to use it on their streams and then their stream get.
Yeah.
So I just ate pizza during the sprint. What did you guys do?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. I had to switch to my Wi-Fi in hopes it doesn't break because okay, now my printer stopped printing because my printer it's wireless, so I have to be connected to the same Wi-Fi to print. Didn't realize that. That's also the sound of my printer. I'm printing out like before I print on sticker paper, I print it all in like black and white on like normal paper to see like if the sizing is right. And I just can't, I don't know, I can't. Every single time I do that, I just very much underestimate the size of an A4 paper, like on Word. So I will have to resize it because those are some. That's a bit big to use as fun stickers for a thing. Like for some things maybe, but not everything. It's I also have like here's the donut hole frog and the
Oh, hold on. Can I make you big screen? Oopsie, that's the wrong button. There we go. Oh, beautiful.
It's obviously going to be color when I actually print it, but now I have to resize things because that's not what I had thought. I don't know. I can't. It's yeah. I've had to like I've printed a couple of things only, but like I had to resize like basically every single thing because I look at the paper like on Word and I'm like that looks about right, but like on my laptop, not in real life.
Yeah, fair enough. Like if you have a big monitor, it's almost like life size. But when you have
Yeah,
a smaller monitor, it's hard to.
exactly. But like yeah, that's why I print first like in black and white and on normal printer paper so that I don't use color, like all the color that I would need for the thing, and don't like use my sticker paper. Because even though I bought like the cheapest option, it's still too expensive to waste. Yeah. And what did you do?
I am still going through Vespertine.
Is Phoebe like a black screen with a
Nope, she looks
thingy for
fine to
you?
me.
Yeah, that's
Am I here?
my internet.
Yeah, I
I'll
think
be
it's
right
you,
back.
Nina.
The timer also lagged, and I like commented,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, sorry for the timer lag," but like then I just closed a bunch of tabs and it started working again. So I was like, okay, I just was flying too close to the sun with my internet, I think.
Yeah, because my internet was a bit iffy earlier, I just closed down the YouTube and anything else that was open, so I'm just on the StreamYard. So hopefully that will be okay. Yeah, I'm highlighting at the moment like the dialogue of this character, but I think I might go through and do another pass where I look at something else, but I'm only halfway through on this pass anyway at the moment. Already interesting stuff is cropping up that's going to really help me with my novel.
Love that. Yeah, I mean, also like kind of like on the conversation of like writing or reading critically, like I think about that a lot when I'm reading, because something I'm kind of insecure about sometimes when I'm writing is like there goes Nina, my sentence structure or just like general grammar and things like that. I get really like in my head about it. And just like voice, like writing voice, like how do I want this story to sound? How do I want this story to come across? And I think like going over to the bookshelf and being like, okay, like let's pull out some examples of like the kind of like tonal things that I want. And that was super helpful for me. Like just picking out certain books and being like, yeah, this is kind of a vibe that I would like, not necessarily that author's writing style, but like this, but like make it me. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes this is going to sound really pathetic and it's going to make me sound like a terrible writer. But sometimes my work my sentence structure starts to feel really repetitive. And for example, when I'm doing dialogue that I've sort of I've formatted the dialogue the same way each time in terms of whether it has like said at the end or whether said in the middle or like with a beat, or my sentences and my paragraphs so often beginning just character name did such and such, you know? And sometimes I have to go to a real book and go like, how can sentences go again?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Phoebe, I have to say, like, I watch a lot of author tubers, but like you're like one of my people who, like, the way you talk about writing always resonates with me. Like, there's author tubers I watch for entertainment and author tubers that, like, when they talk about writing, I was like, yes, I like, they get me. And like, you're one of those people that when I watch your videos, I was like, I get Phoebe.
Love that. Thank you.
By the way, it doesn't make you sound like a terrible writer. I do that so much. When I started writing contemporary again, and I did read a little bit of contemporary before. I never really wrote it. But like then I was like, I started writing it, and I was like, how do you like, because there is a difference between like writing style and sentence structure, I feel like, in like contemporary and fantasy. So I just went to my bookshelf and like pulled out a bunch of contemporary books and just looked at like how they were writing, because I was like, how does one do that? Because all my sentences were like started with I, and all were like really weird. Like I tried to make them like interesting, but it didn't work. So yeah, that's also something that I have to fix at some point in all of my things. It's but like I think it's with what you said before, with the like taking out books that like you want the vibe of or whatever. I do that a lot. I used to do that a lot. I had like on my desk, I had like a stack of books that like inspired this story in any way, shape, or form. And I do really like that still, because I think it's so fun to like just have this thing in front of you that's like the perfect, like you want it to be like this, but you obviously, and not a copy. Oh, just the feel of things.
Stop it. She's
because I've ascended to the top of the pyramid. I did the best solo this week. Before I get to be on top of the pyramid.
No, I totally get that. I also sometimes feel like when I'm writing, like I think that I'm gonna get like writing help by osmosis. Like a lot of times I'll put like my favorite craft books next to me. Like I'm not reading them, I'm not opening them for reference, but they need to be next to me.
Yeah, exactly. I will take books when I'm going out in my bag that I'm not going to have time to look at, but I'm like, it's just gonna, you know, I just like to be surrounded.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did that too a lot. Like I went to Starbucks a lot with a friend, and I still do, but I used to just take like my favorite book at the time for a while. Obviously, even now it's The Invisible Life of Ellie LaRue, and it's a thick book and it's heavy, but I carried it with me everywhere. And I never like, sometimes I would like open it like at Starbucks if I needed like a vibe, you know, if I needed to like see things, because that book kind of like inspired my Vienna fantasy story. Not like in story, like the plot wise, but like just the feel of it. And I just had that book with me all the time. One time I went on a picnic with a friend, and I took House Moving Castle because it was like, we need it. It's for the aesthetic. I didn't read it, but it was there for the aesthetic. And I think sometimes you just need to be surrounded by books.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Let's get into our YA discussion. Because YA is what the book club reads in middle grade, and I only write YA. I don't know about you guys, but I'm like pretty much an exclusively YA girly. I would love to write middle grade, but I haven't got there. Okay, you do adult as well, Nina?
I mostly write YA. I have like dabbled in like the new adult. My Vienna fantasy story is a thing that's it's like new adult kind of in that part, I'm very unsure. My Vienna Fantasy Story 2 is more like YA, I think, in like feel. But like I mostly write YA. I have written some middle grade and I've had ideas for middle grade, but YA is my main job, is my main like edge category and has been like since I started writing. But I do like to dabble in the other ones.
I would ask you, Nina. I think that's a good follow up because you said you have like kind of the space between YA and NA, because that's our first like question here. How would we define YA, and how would then you like draw the line, especially with your own writing? If you're like, you said a little bit between.
For me, I think it's I mean, I still have to read a lot more like in different age categories to really understand the age category, because for many years now I've been stuck in the YA reading age category, not like exclusively, but a lot. And but like for example, I find it really hard to like define the age category, especially between NA and like adult. With some of my books, I can say it's NA based on like books I've read that follow the same like structure. Obviously, that's the whole thing with new adult in traditional publishing, obviously. But I've had like a rom-com idea, many rom-com ideas, and almost all of them were like NA, but only like based on like the character's age and what they were doing in their life, what stage they were in their life. But I found it like really hard to like establish what like a fantasy book would be. With my
Yeah.
Vienna Fantasy Story, for example, it's a lot of the things I think that people might expect from adults aren't there, but like the characters to me, they are very established in their life. It's not that thing where you like try to still find yourself, with which I think is often in like NA books. There's still like a growing part. It's different from the YA growing up, but like in NA, oftentimes from what I've seen, you like navigate college or like first job things.
Yes.
And when I have like that particular thing and I know like in contemporary, I think it's for me easier to like say what I think it will be, but it could always change
I
depending on how
I
I write.
really I think I understand what you're saying because in fantasy, in YA fantasy, you'll a lot of times see very like adult things happening to teen characters, like being put in an arranged marriage. But this is a
And
teenager, like
even what Nina just said about first job, I mean, so many young adult fantasies I can think of, the character essentially has a job,
job, yeah.
or like they're just graduating out of their training and starting to go into some
Yeah.
actual role. So yeah, it's definitely different contemporary versus fantasy.
And I think also because, I don't know, in fantasy, I feel like a lot of times, like YA books could very well just be adult. Like like I love Six of Crows. I do. But like when I first read it, not as much, but like looking back, a lot of things feel like it feels sometimes feel like the characters were forcefully aged down when
Yes.
they should have been older, which I also think is like I I think like I kind of get why they maybe would do that, but like in general, I think like there isn't much of a difference like between like Six of Crows and like I don't know, Darker Shade of Magic from like a lot
Yeah.
of the things like, and Darker Shade of Magic is
I was
considered adult.
thinking I was actually thinking of that as one of the examples of like an adult fantasy that really rides the line of sort of feeling
Yeah.
YA still.
Yeah, because it also like I say like a lot. I'm sorry, but I think with like adult now less than it used to, but a lot of people expect like the romance to take off oftentimes in a lot of like if there is romance, it at least used to be like that. And like in A Darker Shade of Magic, I haven't read the other two books, but like in the first one, that didn't really happen. It was very much like I read it and I thought like this feels like Six of Crows, which was like like DYA book at the time. I feel like it's really
Yeah.
interesting how like people
I understand though why Six of Crows got marketed YA because Shadow and Bone was YA and it's in the same universe and you couldn't.
exactly.
I mean, I get that
Yeah.
from a marketing point. I also just wanted to say hi to Amy.
I feel like when you read the book, you kind of in my head I pictured them more as adults, like not old adults, but maybe in their early 20s.
Yeah.
And then one of the characters' ages will pop up and you'll be like, whoop, Kaz Brecker's what? He's how old?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's a baby?
Yeah.
How does he have all of this like incredible strategy and intelligence and experience in the in the barrel? What's it called in the
Yeah.
the kind of shady areas of Ketterdam, whatever that's called. Like, how does he have all of this stuff going when he's like, I know he started young, but even so, you read it and you're like, he kind of reads like someone who's has a bit longer to learn all this stuff.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
has opinions.
And also the whole menagerie thing. Like, I probably wouldn't put
Yeah.
myself, I probably wouldn't put the menagerie in a young adult book.
Yeah, when we're talking
Yeah.
how would I define YA, for me that would just be a straight up no-go. Like I would never have included that in a YA book.
But my biggest pet peeve is books that should have been adult that were marketed as YA, like the Sarah J. Maas books. Like, if you've got descriptive sex scenes, then I'm sorry, but like, are you really writing those for teenagers? Do you really write this sex scene thinking, this is two teenage characters having sex and I would like some teenagers to read about it too? Like, really?
Yeah, I think also like this whole thing, I also think it's very different in like different like parts of the world. Like, I'm from Austria and we read a lot of books by like German and Austrian authors. And some of these books, if they would have been published in, let's say, in the US, they would have been adult just because of the contents in it. Like, there was a book that we had to read. I didn't read it, but I heard from other people because I never really read the books in school. But there were like so many explicit sex scenes between teenagers and like a lot of other things. Like they went to like strip clubs and all that. And like everything from what I've heard was really explicit. And we had to read that. And I remember that like the entire class was like against reading something like that again, not because we thought it was like problematic or anything, but it's, I don't know, it was like we weren't warned that would happen. We're just given that book because it was required reading. It was one of the books that most schools had to read. And I just thought, like maybe a heads up would have been good for like all the like 15, 14-year-olds who were like just given this book and said, read it.
I think one thing that bothers me is, see, the thing I get conflicted about is that I'm like, the problem is teenagers are doing stuff, and it kind of feels in some ways to coddle them to never admit in literature that they are doing stuff and that is a part of their lived experience. However, the problem with the way romance is written in certain books is that it's quite toxic and problematic, and if it's not problematic then it's just unrealistic. Like the characters will get busy and it's like the most incredible thing ever, even though it's their first ever time. It's like incredible and you're like, oh, but that's not really like that's setting up false expectations.
No, this is such a pet peeve of mine of like two characters, if they like have like not, it doesn't have to be like an insta love, but like two characters, they finally get together, right? The teenage characters, right? They're a couple now, they're an established couple, and like immediately the rapport goes to being like an old married couple, like like immediately. And that's not how relationships are usually, especially new relationships and with younger people. There's still a lot of insecurities there, even if you're a couple. Like, so when I see authors who put that in, like put insecurities and put like the little relationship issues, I'm like, okay, that's realistic. They should at least have always some sort of conflict, even if it doesn't have to be something big. It can be something small and petty,
Yeah, I think so too. Like the way a lot of relationships are portrayed just doesn't feel very realistic. In some people do like very well, but a lot of people also in like fantasy, in like all genres, a lot of like the romance, even if not insta lovey, is like so forced still sometimes.
Yeah.
And like the like being nice is forced. Like also like I like in, I don't know, like enemies to lovers, when they go from enemies to lovers like instantly, that's something that really bugs me, because
Yeah.
it's just, you just hated each other and tried to kill each other, and now everything is okay, like in the in a matter of like one chapter. That's a little, no. it, yeah, I think you need to like show realistic, like realistic characters and relationships, but you have to still think of how you do it, because there's a big difference between adult and YA. Like in Looking for Alaska, there are also like scenes that people would consider not YA friendly,
Yeah.
but they are like shown in a very different way than like in an adult book. I think
Yeah, I've
it's
heard
very
that.
different on how you handle the situation as an author, and you can still put that in. Like also like getting drunk. A lot of people are like, we shouldn't put that in books because it influences the kids. But
I
like,
have that in my books. I think all of my YA books have drinking actually.
yeah, I think it's just realistic. Like I never went and got drunk because I didn't like alcohol, but I know a lot of my friends did, and I still went to like their birthday parties and all that. But like a lot of people do, and I think it's obviously you shouldn't be like, oh, the cool kids drink and you should do it too.
Yeah.
But like not showing it at all is
I actually
kind of
have it in
unrealistic.
several of my books, and it's usually it's the characters' like first experiences with those pressures, or first time like trying alcohol or feeling,
Yeah,
intoxicated. Um,
I
I
have
don't
that
know.
also in a lot of my YA books. That's something that happens. But like, I'm not like, if you don't drink, you're uncool, because
Yeah,
I've also
exactly. It
read
feels
that in
like
books.
it's like we were saying earlier about how if the book is for children, you feel like you have to be a bit more careful with the subtext and the message than if it's for adults, because the same thing with teenagers. Like even though teenagers are developing those critical skills, they're still not maybe as set and developed as an adult because they haven't had all the experiences yet. So you just feel like you want to be more careful. Like you don't want to pretend these things don't exist, but you just want to be careful about how you portray them.
For sure, definitely. Wait, I just had Melon's comment. I was just thinking about a good segue to say, like, because the Tome Travelers do the different age categories. I think they have some interesting talk about the differences between YA and NA, because they include NA as one of their age categories, which I think is cool. Yeah, it's the publishing industry.
Yeah.
Kind of pushing, I think, sometimes writers to write YA when they don't necessarily want to, especially since YA did have such a moment. I do think the popularity of like YA is kind of dwindling. I don't see like those big hits like there used to be.
We haven't had one in a while. We haven't had that like big lead title that everyone reads.
Yeah.
I
Like
think
I know like These Violent Delights was really big. What's that other one? Iron Widow. Like there's a couple that got like big, but not like Hunger Games big.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I also think a lot of like the big books that like come out now are like adult. Some of them probably new adult, but like, as we've established, that's not really a thing in traditional publishing yet. And through TikTok, they are marketed towards people who should isn't the right word. People who probably read YA mostly. I know that from like friends who've said that like their siblings who aren't mature enough to like critically read a book, read a lot of the like adult romance books now, because like social media also markets them towards teens and young people. And since it's such a hype, it's kind of like it gets like the appropriate for all ages stamp on it, even if it
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah. You're not wrong about that. What it's saying, age categories are more relaxed. Yeah. Yeah. That's like what Amy was saying. Cultural differences. I think acknowledging that teenagers have sex is good, and maybe hinting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
also feel icky writing things too explicit with my characters because they are teenagers.
I
Yeah.
also think though it's the tone. It's the tone of like, is this a story moment? Is this developing a relationship, developing a plot point, developing something? Or does this feel like porn? Like it feels like
Yes.
it's there
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
me feel turned on.
Yeah, exactly. Because especially maybe you are writing like a contemporary about traumatic first experience or any type of something like that. Of course, yeah, you can put that in your book. It is exactly how you said, Phoebe. It's about how you go about it, and is it just there for, I don't know, shock value or to be
Yeah.
edgy? I personally do like Fade to Black. Not all my YA books have sex, but a lot of them do. A lot of my characters are like sexually active. Um, but yeah, I don't put it explicitly on the page. I think like making out, I do have like kissing scenes because I know as a teen I liked reading that. Like reading Twilight, like the scenes where Edward and Bella were like making out, like that was like my that did it for me as a teen. I thought that was real spicy. So I yeah.
I'm so into the slow burn thing that I do this slow burn through the whole book of like they fancy each other but they've never touched, and then it will get to the final scenes and I'm like, oh, I forgot to even have them like kiss. Maybe they should kiss now.
Oh yeah, like me, I'm like such a Jane Austen fan. Like,
Yeah,
and they don't touch like at all.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my god, he
It's all about just
looked at
like the
her
glances
like,
across
oh
the
my
room.
god, that was so hot.
But I think like stuff like that is really challenging. Like in my Vienna fantasy story, the two like main characters that I write from the point of view, they are in love and in a relationship, but like for reasons they like don't touch or kiss or anything because they kind of can't. And I think it's really interesting to like still write a relationship without like the physical aspect of it. And I think I like reading that in books, like just
Yeah.
the not like you meet someone and bam you make out, but also sometimes it makes sense why it's in the book like that.
Yeah.
I mean, having talked about the distinction between how we would tackle romance in YA versus adult, I actually often find when I write adult that lots of the key relationships of the book, like the one dynamic that the whole book revolves around and develops, is actually not a romance at all. So I've found myself writing about like pseudo-parental relationships, mentor relationships, best friendships, whereas a lot of my young adult things, probably all of them, have a romantic subplot. Like it's a really key feature of the genre. But recently I've been writing about like a situation from the perspective of kind of a parent potentially adopting a child. So, you know, like all of that stuff feels innately adult. I don't know.
No, I understand what you mean. Like, that's one of the reasons I write YA is because like I had a good, I think, teenage years, and the emotions are so big when you're a teenager. A lot of things are very black and white, or the world is ending, or this is amazing. And I think that feeling of being in love and falling in love and crushing on somebody, or everything just feels on fire when you're a teen. And I think that's what really does it for me about writing YA. Like,
Yeah.
I
you can
tend to
kind of
like
be over the top and campy with your feelings.
yeah,
Melodramatic.
no, I love that. No, I tend to like write characters that are close to age to me. Not only
But you're young.
anymore, but I used to do that. And also I used to read like old books that I wrote once a story and I posted it on Instagram, and it's the most embarrassing thing in the entire world because I thought I knew what a 16-year-old girl was at like 12 or 13. I did not. but like everything I knew was from like TV shows. But now I still write characters around my age. Even in YA, they're like usually like
Yeah.
18, 17, something like that. But one of the things that I like about writing YA is that kind of like different to like you, Violet, I kind of had like a shitty like teenage experience in like school. So I like writing books where like my characters kind of have that, but also have a better time than I do. Like living vicariously through my characters, not like in a sad way, but like in a just I like putting in like the bad stuff, but I also like putting in the good stuff because I think that I wish I had books that I read at that time that showed more of like the things I was going through.
No, I totally feel that. I worry about that a lot, with characters like feeling like self-insert to me, especially in my high school Monster Hunter story, the character Robin. I really worry that people like my author friends are gonna read it and be like, "Violet, she's really similar to you." I'm like, but she wasn't like teenage me. Like I was not like that as a teenager. But where like in my rom-com, that character is maybe a lot more similar to me, naive and shy and yeah, making
Yeah,
silly mistakes and embarrassing herself.
I have a
So
lot of like self-inserts in some way, and they usually change throughout the book. Like the more I write, the more I learn about this specific character. But at the beginning, almost all my characters are like me.
yeah, I mean, you have to give parts of yourself to your characters, otherwise it's kind of I don't know. I guess you could write your opposite. Okay, wait, I was reading Melon's comment. Not like everyone who normally doesn't read it big. Yeah.
I think that's a big distinction as to how big a title is.
Yeah. Yes, I understand what Melon is saying there. Yeah, like the John Green books. Not so much. Oh, okay, great. We've been trusted to our own devices. Okay, let's go crazy. Oh, okay. Oh, hey, Nikki. Fault in Our Stars, looking for Alaska. Yeah.
But
There's a lot.
that's a while ago now, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like 2005, right? Those books. Yeah, but that's people who already read. Like, if you ask people in the circles, yeah. I agree. But when you watch American shows and everyone has sex in the first episode, it's boring, and suddenly you watch a Korean one, and oh
Yes.
my god, the tension of the slow burn. Yeah, I love a slow burn. It's cathartic. So that's why I write as well. All my characters have a hard time fitting in. Oh, what is Anne saying? I don't know if it's because I read a lot of American-based books, but a lot of the books I read as a teen didn't relate to as much because their experience are so different than my own.
Yeah, I
Come
relate
on,
to that a
Anne.
lot.
Gotta write the, European high school experience. Come on. Waiting for it. Could be interesting. Oh, are we at the 2-hour mark already?
Yeah.
That went
Yeah.
so fast. We were just in the zone with our discussion.
I really enjoyed this chat.
Yeah, I love talking about like those topics. I talk a lot sometimes. I'm sorry, but I do love talking about like having like certain topics to talk about that are like really interesting and you can like have different viewpoints. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have to say it went really well. You guys were amazing co-hosts. I'm really glad I picked you guys to invite. I will once again remind everybody if they want to help the book club pick our next reads, check out the Google form. I did a pinned comment, I believe. And this month we're reading Ranger's Apprentice in collaboration with the Tome Traveler Book Club. Check out their channel as well and their Discord and our Discord and all that fun stuff. And subscribe to this channel because we need the subs over here. Do you guys have any introductions you would like to do?
No.
Bye, I'm Nina.
Oh, you guys are nice. More chatty streams on this channel, please? Yeah, we can make that happen for sure. Oh, Melon's got to go. Productivity. I'm going to be productive for the rest of it. I'm going to start writing after this. Yep, that's true. Okay, we're gonna. I have to roll the outro. Where's the button? Outro. Bye.